Hello, everybody, and welcome to the final prediction and update video for the 2024 United States presidential election. This is our, third or fourth video we've done on this. And, well, we're here. Election is tomorrow. When you got, it's late, it's early in the morning for me on Monday, the 4th of November. The latest of the polls have finally hit. I feel comfortable because I don't feel like there's going to be any meaningful poll to come out throughout the rest of the day. Nothing that's going to make you change what you're going to really do here if you're going in person to vote. Many of you have already voted early. You've mailed in ballots or you've gone to an early voting state poll location and you've done that. Congratulations. It's over for you for sure. The rest of us, we're at the last bit of our decision making and we're about to hit it. So anyways, guys, you guys know how we do this. Let's just go ahead and jump right in. You guys are seeing the empty map behind me right now. These are our toss-up states. They have not changed the entire time. You're seeing Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia as our toss-up states, all 7 of those. And there's roughly 93 votes probably on the table right now. We don't know who they're going to go for, but we're going to use some analysis and we're going to figure it out ourselves. So let's go ahead and look at one very interesting piece of the puzzle right now. Now, I talked a little bit about mail-in and early voting and all that. Well, NBC has published their latest finding of 76 million votes that have been mailed in or early votes cast by people. I mean, it's amazing. This is across the nation. Now, I've highlighted the battleground states so you guys can see them. I think it's interesting, but that's to put that in perspective. 66.6% of potential voters showed up in 2020. It's about 155 million votes were cast, and we've done 76. That's about 49% have voted early in some way, shape, or form. That's pretty awesome. I've never heard of that. I never thought we'd get there this year. I thought this year actually might be a little less than the last time because, people were, might have been worried about more of a fraud situation. But honestly, people showed up and showed out. I'm glad they utilized it. So, yeah. And if you look, I mean, it's pretty even. 41% were apparently registered Democrats, 39% registered Republicans. If we look, Arizona had 2 million votes cast. Nevada had over 1 million votes cast. Wisconsin had almost 1.5 million. Michigan had almost 3 million. Pennsylvania had 1.7 million. North Carolina had 4.4 million. And Georgia had 4 million. So that's a lot of votes cast early. And, it seems to be pretty even across most states as far as between what they think were Republican and Democrat. So, not a bad deal. So anyways, I thought that was very interesting. I thought we'd take a look at it really fast. Now, let's hop into these polls, right? This is what we are all here for. Let's take a look at the national polls. Now, I'm using 538 for a liberal bias poll, and I'm using RealClearPolitics for a conservative bias poll. At the end, I'll give, we'll throw their predictions in there, and then we'll take a look at mine. So we'll take a look here at 538. The national poll states that Harris is ahead by 0.9% of the vote. Now, this is a national poll. National poll does not mean electoral vote. It just means popular vote. So right now, 538 thinks that she's going to have a 1% popular vote lead. In the United States, though, you're required to win the Electoral College, which means you've got to win a certain number of states with certain numbers of votes to them. You guys should know this by now. If you don't know it, just go Wikipedia Electoral College. You'll learn it. You'll probably learn why people hate it too. It doesn't really matter. What you think about that is just how it's done. So anyways, we're about a little less than 1% in favor of Harris nationally, according to 538. We go over here and look at RealClearPolitics. RealClearPolitics thinks that Trump is ahead by 0.1%. I'll be honest, 0.1% so minuscule, it doesn't really matter. I don't think Trump's going to win the popular vote. Harris is not that unpopular that she would just drive away that much, and Trump's not that popular that he would drive that many towards him. So that's just That's just my perception of this. But yeah, so let's go ahead and take a look at the turnout factor or favorability. I've been looking at this the entire time. If you don't know what I'm talking about, generally the more favorable a candidate is, the more likely people will show up for them. If they're unfavorable, more likely they'll show up for their opposition. So in this case, this only applies to Kamala, because Trump has been a very divisive figure for the last 10 years almost. So it doesn't really matter what he does, because people have already made up their minds on Donald Trump. Kamala Harris is a different story. So if we take a look at her, a week ago on the 27th, when we last looked at this, she was 1.3% more unfavorable. Now she is 2% more unfavorable. So she's grown in unfavorability. And this could be certain gaffes. I've said it all along. You have to avoid the gaffes at this point. You're not going to win people over via policy. You're just not going to do that. You're going to have to go into these things. You're going to have to become more likable, and you can't do dumb things. And this week, the biggest gaffe has got to be where President Biden, this isn't even Kamala's fault. This is now on her own party. And because remember, if you're the vice president to the current president, you have a horse that's hitched. Your wagon is hitched to that horse. So you're stuck with what they say and what they do. Biden came out and maybe he misspoke, but it doesn't matter if he misspoke or not. It got pulled out there where he said that, anybody supporting Trump is garbage. Really, truly, Biden should probably just be quiet at this point. He hasn't been well liked for a long time. He should probably just stay, in the White House and just kind of lead quietly. That's just my 2 cents. But at the end of the day, I think he's hurt Kamala more than he's helped her. In this case right here, it's given like a last second deal. So here we are, 2% unfavorable. Of course, we'll go look at Trump. I always look at Trump, right? On the 27th, Trump was 8.6% unfavorable. He is now currently the exact same. No real change there. He's always been unfavorable, yet he still polls well. That's because Trump has a core following and people know they're going to vote for him. And that's just the way it is. There's no changing it. If this just doesn't have any correlation when it comes to Trump himself, other than the fact that, people already have made up their mind. Let's go on into some actual state polls. This is what you're here for. So let's hit them up. Nevada. According to 538, Nevada is, let's see. Come on, get all the way over there. All right. 0.5% in favor of Trump. If we take a look at the 27th, it was 0.2% in favor of Trump. So it's a net gain for Trump. It's still minuscule. It's still within the margin of error. Anything under 2% is really margin of error. And then we start talking about, we're getting out of it about 2.5, 3%. So it's still within the margin of error, but Trump's getting more of a lead according to the polls for 538. If a liberal poll is showing that, it's probably true. Let's go take a look at the conservative poll, RealClearPolitics. On the 27th, let's see, Trump was at 0.3%. He is now at 1%. So they say he's gained by 0.7 to 1 whole percentage point. Looks like both of them are in agreement. Nevada is going to Trump. Let's take a look at Arizona. Arizona on the 27th was 1.8% for Trump, according to 538. And now it's at 2.6%. That's a 0.8% increase. Is that correct? I want to make sure I have my math right. Yes, that's a 0.8% increase. And that's now over 2.5%. 538 is now pretty much moved beyond margin of error. And that's a pretty hard, red state, red prediction. Let's go to the conservative poll. And on the 27th, they had Trump at 1.6%. And now they're showing him at 2.6%. So he's gained a full percentage point there over the 2.5%. Their margin of errors have been about 3%, as you can see. So I'm going to kind of call it, I'm going to still call it that they're pretty sure Trump's got Arizona. So let's move on to Wisconsin. Wisconsin on the 27th, according to 538, it was 0.2% in favor of Harris. They did get even there for a second, and then the new poll started rolling in, and Harris has kind of taken the lead to 0.8%, so a 0.6% increase for Harris. So it's gotten more in her camp. Let's take a look over here at Real Clear. Real Clear is saying On the 27th, it was 0.3% in favor of Trump. It's now 0.3% in favor of Harris, a 0.6% swing. So according to Real Clear Politics, it's actually flipped. This state has flipped over to Harris. And that's probably right based off of, things I've seen. So anyways, there you go. Let's move on to Michigan. Michigan on the 27th, Harris was 0.4 ahead. She is now 0.8 ahead. So she's doubled her lead. Let's go look at what Real Clear has to say. Real Clear on the 27th had Trump ahead by 0.2. Now has Harris ahead by 0.9. So that's a 1.1% swing. I would kind of say if Real Clear Politics is saying it and the other in 538 saying it, I have to agree with them. That's kind of like a concession. So yeah, let's go to North Carolina. North Carolina on the 27th, Trump was 1.3%. Now saying he's 1.6%. 1.2%. Sorry, I'm a little off. It's okay. A little different, little changed backwards. It could just be polls tightening. Not a big deal if it's that small. Let's go and take a look at North Carolina. According to Real Clear, they had Trump ahead by 0.9 a week ago, and now they have him at 1.5, so a gain of 0.6. So in their case, they think it's a little bit, they think it's actually gaining. Let's go to Georgia. Georgia is on the 27th. Let's see, 1.5%. And now they still think it's 1.5%. The polls didn't change a thing in Georgia, according to them. They're pretty certain that Georgia's going to stay that way. Let's come over here and see what Real Clear has to say. Real Clear had Trump at 2.3% in Georgia a week ago, and they currently have him at 1.9% now. 0.4% back towards Harris in this case. I don't really know. I feel like I feel that Real Clear's probably got this a little bit better. But you can still see the past data, for the last week or 2 weeks, according to them, and it's mostly red Trump. Harris did get ahead in the New York Times and Siena poll, but I'll tell you, that's a pretty biased poll. So, I think Atlas Intel is a really good one to look off of. A 3% margin of error with 1,100, almost 1,200 likely voters. That's what LV means, is likely voters. And you're seeing, a 50 to 48 according to them. I feel like that's probably more spot on. Let's go to Pennsylvania, the last state, the big one that we all care about, because this is probably going to be the one that really flips things around. This is the one that we really don't know, and we haven't known the whole time. Trump, 0.3% ahead last week. Currently now 0.2% tightening. We don't know. It's still the biggest toss-up of them all, right? It could go one way or the other. We don't know. Let's look at Pennsylvania. According to Real Clear Politics, we're looking at it was on the 27th, 0.5%. It's now 0.3%. Again, it's just tightening. Since I just said something about Atlas Intel, let's take a look. They did a 2-day look in Pennsylvania to get a 2% margin of error, 2,049 likely voters. It's 50 to 48 according to them. Their last one, I think, is probably, I don't think they've cut it out. No, they haven't. But you can see most of these in the past have either been a tie or red. Very few blue pulling, Muhlenberg College. I don't know that one. But it's got a 6% margin of error. I don't trust that poll at all. 3.1 for Marist, and then the Washington Post, a 3.1. They got some good likely voters. I can kind of trust those. I'm not going to go out there and make my whole decision based off their polls, though. But you can see a little bit there. So yeah, there you go. That's a run of the gambit there. Let's go ahead and pull out our data from last week. Now, this is the 538 poll from last week. 538 thinks that Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania will go for the Republicans. Wisconsin and Michigan will go for the Democrats. After this week, there's been some changes. Okay, Nevada has gone 0.7% more red. Arizona has gone 0.8% more red. Wisconsin has gone 0.6% more blue. Michigan has gone 0.4% more blue. North Carolina has gone 0.1% more blue, but there's still no change. Georgia is the exact same margin, and Pennsylvania has gone 0.1% more blue, but no change. According to, if they ran based off the polls that 538 has, this would be the election right here. A 287 Republican victory to 251 Democrat defeat. So they would say Trump won according to 538. Let's go over to Real Clear Politics. Now, Real Clear Politics a week ago had basically all the swing states going in favor of Trump. So Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Well, there's changes here today, but let's take a look from the top. Nevada, according to them, is 0.7% more red. Arizona is 1% more red. Wisconsin is 0.6% more blue, and it represented a change. So we're going to change them over here. Then we're going to come over here to Michigan. Michigan was a 1.1% change in favor of Harris, and it flipped that state on their polls. Then we're going to come down and take a look at North Carolina. 0.6% more red in North Carolina. In Georgia, it was 0.4% more blue, but it didn't change anything. And Pennsylvania was 0.2% more blue, but it didn't change anything. So according to Real Clear Politics, a conservative polling site, it's a 287% Republican victory, or 287 vote Republican victory to a 251 vote Democrat victory. The exact same thing between 538 and Real Clear Politics. Two aggregate polling sites have now pulled together and said, boom, that's it. All right, now they might change in the final day. I don't know. Again, I'll keep an eye on it. If they do change, I'll probably say something more along the lines of, in our recap video that, they did at the final second. So we can really figure out who between those two aggregate sites had it right. But at the end of the day, they agree. But here's something else. They agree with me. This is my polling from last week. I've used different shades because there's some tilts in there, but this is my polling from last week. I had Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania all going for Republicans, and Wisconsin and Michigan going for Democrats. I feel this is right. I felt this is right pretty much kind of the whole time. There was some change for me with Nevada, I think, at one point, but other than that, I've kind of felt this is good. And really, we're going to go through this again. I'm going to give you my full, honest, last second prediction. All right. And I'm going to put in some leans because I feel like there's some states that just are not going to change back. But I mean, this just feels right to me. So let's, at the end of the day, after all of my training I've had in analysis for elections and work I've done on elections, it comes down to an instinct. What you're hearing on the news, what you're hearing all together, just putting it all together, and it's finally like, what do you think? And my instinct says, this is right. All right, so let's go ahead and let's change a few things because there's a few more things that I do want to update. Nothing that'll change the base totals here, but I wanted to say that there are some races that are not that tight, in my opinion. All right, so first off, I think Arizona is probably safer is probably one of the safer states. Actually, let's go ahead and make it a likely. I think Arizona is going to be Republican. It'll flip. And I feel so strongly so that, I would probably bet money on that. Georgia, I'm going to take this one from a tilt red to a leans red. It's probably going to go Republican. I'm fairly certain it will go Republican. I wouldn't put money on it. That's the difference. North Carolina, I'm going to say North Carolina is a likely red, or, I would probably put money on North Carolina going Republican this time. I feel like the state, after all the disasters, after, it really is a place where people who used to be in Virginia ran to. When they realized that their state was going blue, they ran to North Carolina. And some of those went down to Georgia too. So in Florida. So I think that's why the Southeast is actually getting more red overall. We had some weird swing state stuff in the past, but anyways, I think there's that. Let's go and take a look at Nevada. Now, Nevada's weird. Nevada has grown its lead for Republicans. It really hasn't seen much backtracking. I mean, if we look at 538, 538 has Trump winning at 57.9 to 47, or excuse me, 47.9 to 47.3. RealClearPolitics has it 48.5 to 47.5. It's just not enough for me to want to change this. So I think it's tilting red. I think it will swap over. I think it will stay Republican, but I'm not going to give it anything more there. Let's take a look at Wisconsin. Wisconsin is, 48.5 to 48.2 in favor of Harris by RealClearPolitics, and it's 48.2 to 47.4 in favor of Harris. I'm going to give Wisconsin, I'm going to keep it tilt, but Michigan, I'm going to go leans. I'm fairly certain that Michigan will go Democrat at this point, and that leaves the last one being Pennsylvania. Now, when it comes to Pennsylvania, it's going to come down to, do the suburbs show up? The suburbs of Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, do they show up or not? The suburbs can be more Republican in those areas, and the inner urban areas where there's still a lot of people in their inner urban areas, they're going to be more Democrat generally. Where are they going to show up? And we'll find out. You better believe I'll be up at 2:00 in the morning on Tuesday night, trying to figure it out, where they showed up at. But I'm going to say it's a lean red for Pennsylvania. And there you go. That's the final prediction right here. I'm confident saying Arizona and North Carolina. I'm fairly confident on Georgia and Michigan. Not so confident on Nevada, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. But I think at the end of the night, Trump's going to win this thing 287 to 251. So yeah, I think this is where we're at. I think with all that together, this is what you see from me. Guys, at the end of the day, I want you all to make sure you do go vote if you can vote. If you haven't voted early, if you plan to go vote day of, please go vote. Exercise your right, regardless if you like what I said here or you don't. I don't care if you vote for, Kamala Harris. I don't care if you vote for Donald Trump. Just go vote. Go do your civic duty and get it. Make sure you do it, because you cannot complain. One way, in my opinion, you cannot complain if you don't vote. Your right to complain comes from you voted and you tried. So there you go, guys. Anyways, appreciate y'all so much for watching. Thank you for holding with me throughout the entire election, through the entire process of doing all this. Later in the week, when this thing is called, I will go through and do like kind of a last second, look through. We'll probably look at some counties. We'll look through at some of these battleground states and say, well, this is really how we could tell things. I'll probably go back and tell you when I knew that how this race was going to get called, and how I knew at that point, well, Trump's got it or Harris has it, and I'll tell you that. So anyways, guys, just, if you haven't, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the content, like this video, leave a comment. Let me know who you think is going to win. Let me know if you voted. That's important as well. And guys, I look forward to taking a look at this in just a couple of days as we can finally get over the election. Anyways, I'll see you all next time.